Hello and welcome, Grade 11 accounting learners. In today's lesson, we are still focusing on partnerships. Now remember, last week we looked at the general ledger and the various accounts that gets affected. This week we're going to focus on drawing up financial statements. Okay, as usual, I'm going to remind you guys to have some paper in front of you, obviously some pens or pencils, and very, very important, have that calculator with you. So let's get started. Okay, some of the key concepts that you should be familiar with, but let's go through them. When we talk financial statements, remember guys, we are talking about year end and drafting an income statement as well as a balance sheet. So let's recap on the income statement. Right, now remember, your income statement, the purpose of the income statement is to highlight the net profit or loss made by the business for a particular period or a specific period, which is usually 1 year. So the purpose of the income statement, guys, is did the business make a profit or did the business make a loss? The income statement is made up of income and expenses. Very, very important. Your income statement consists of income versus expenses. There's no place for assets, owner's equity. When I say owner's equity, I'm talking about capital and drawings as well as liabilities. It's only made up of your income and expenses. Now the format. Let's talk about the format. The format of the income statement for a partnership remains the same as a sole trader. Now, you guys obviously are familiar with an income statement for a sole trader because this is something that you did in grade 10. So the format for a partnership income statement will stay exactly the same. And I know you guys are probably jumping with joy because you've already learned that format in grade 10. So in grade 11, guys, that format remains the same. Right, let's now look at, or let's recap on the format of the income statement. And because it remains the same, I'm going to give you guys your first activity to fill in certain missing information in the format of the income statement. Right, you've got a minute. I've got A to E. So let's start off with what's on your screen. And then I'm going to give you a bit of time and then scroll down so you can see the balance in terms of the missing information. Okay, so let's start. You've got a minute. Your time starts now. Okay guys, time's up. Let's see whether you were able to fill in this correctly. Right, so I'm just going to quickly scroll back up. So let's start with missing information A. So at the top we know sales minus cost of sales gives us, correct, your gross profit. Okay, sales minus cost of sales gives you gross profit. Right, next part to the income statement. After calculating gross profit, we then look at our other income. So for example, in this case, rent income, commission income, current income. Sometimes they call current income fee income. This year you came across two new income, profit on sale of asset and provision for bad debts adjustment. So remember guys, this income, okay, is often put into a block. So the correct answer for B after adding your other income will be absolutely correct. I hope you got this right. Other operating income. Okay, right, let's go further down. Okay, next bit of information that was missing is item C. And if we go back, okay, your gross profit, which we filled in, plus other operating income gives us your gross operating income. Okay, you guys knew this already. I'm just filling it in. Okay, next missing item, D. Okay, if we look at D, D is obviously adding up all our other expenses. I'm using the word other because remember, at the top, you've already got cost of sales, which is an expense. So after adding your other expenses, we get a total for other operating expenses, or you can just write down operating expenses. Right, and then finally, the last missing item. So if we look at E, your last item is obviously your operating profit. Okay. Right, guys, just a word of advice. When it comes to format, please remember that you cannot afford to use incorrect format because normally there's marks taken away, marks deducted if you're using an incorrect format. So spend some time, go through your formats, make sure that you know the format for the income statement. Okay, going back to the purpose of the income statement. So let's look at the last item, which is filled in for you. It's to calculate whether the business made a net profit or a net loss for the year. Bearing in mind, if they made a net loss for the year, you're obviously going to use brackets. Okay, so that's your income statement sorted. Let's now move on to your balance sheet. Right, now in terms of the balance sheet, what should we remember about the balance sheet? Your balance sheet reflects the financial position of the business at year end. So what do we mean by financial position? Here we're trying to highlight all assets, owner's equity, and liabilities. Okay, so your balance sheet in a nutshell is that accounting equation. A is equal to O plus L. Okay, guys, that's your balance sheet. Assets, after adding up your assets, it must equal to owner's equity plus liabilities. Okay, assets and liability section, and we're obviously talking about the balance sheet, the asset and liability section remains the same as a sole trader. So again, you don't have to learn the asset and liability section format because it's exactly the same as you guys did in grade 10. What, however, changes? So, however, the owner's equity section will change because remember guys, sole trader, you had just one owner contributing capital, whereas in a partnership that now changes. You now have two owners, sometimes up to a maximum of 20. Thank God, but your syllabus normally keeps it to two owners, so you've got to obviously now show owner's equity as per partnership requirements. Okay, so let's quickly go through the format. Okay, so in your format, guys, remember you've got your assets, and as you can see, assets remain exactly the same. You've got your non-current assets. Let's just fill that in. Non-current assets, as well as your current assets. And if I add my non-current assets plus my current assets, that gives me the first subtotal of the balance sheet, my total assets. Then we've got your equity and liabilities. I just want to quickly look at liabilities first, then we look at equity. So under liabilities, you'll still have non-current liabilities like you did in grade 10, as well as your current liabilities. Right, the change takes place with owner's equity. So in terms of owner's equity, you've got capital, where note number 7 changes to reflect the capital contributed by each partner, whether their capital increased or decreased during the year. And then you've also got something completely new, something that you haven't seen before, the current accounts of each partner and what the current account reflects in terms of sharing of profit as well as drawings that were taken for the year. Okay, right, are we guys okay with this? Hopefully you are. Please remember, grade 11s, that at any point in time, especially when we take a break, and if you are unsure or uncertain, please ask your teacher to help you, ask a friend sitting next to you, but please make sure that you getting this, you understanding, you learning from this. Okay, right, we're now ready to start with our first example. So I think let's do that. Let's start with the first exercise. Okay, I'm going to go through the information and then we're going to obviously do the question together. Okay, in terms of the information given, T. Taylor and H. Harris are partners. Okay, so we've got the names of the partners. Taylor and Harris are partners in a business called TH Stores. The business's financial year ends on the 31st of December 2014. Okay, so immediately, guys, I think you already know how I work and what I enjoy drawing up. Correct, it's a timeline. Okay, so let's just quickly look at that timeline. Financial year ends on the 31st of December 2014, which means the financial year started on the 1st of January 2014. So your timeline is more or less your calendar year end. Right, you are given the pre-adjustment trial balance was drawn up on this date. Okay, so in terms of the pre-adjustment trial balance, what do we have? We've got capital Taylor, capital Harris, whatever they've contributed on the 1st of January 2014. So immediately we've got their capital balances at the beginning of the year. Then we've got drawings for Taylor, drawings for Harris. So in other words, whatever they've taken out of the business for personal use for the entire year. And then finally, we've got the current accounts for each partner at the beginning of the year, 1st of January 2014. So I'm just going to remind myself again, this is at the beginning of the year. Okay, with me. Right, then some adjustments and additional information. So I'm going to quickly read through this information so that you are aware of what we're working with. The income statement has been drawn up and the net profit for the year amounted to 221,674. So in other words, they've already taken our income minus our expenses and they've worked out our net profit for the year. All the adjustments were correctly taken into account when calculating the net profit, except for the following adjustment. So we'll obviously read this when we get to the question, but we've got one more adjustment to take into account. Right, the next bit of information, stipulations of the partnership agreement are as follows. Partner Taylor is entitled to a salary of 6,200 Rand per month, while partner Harris is entitled to an annual salary of 72,000. Okay, next bit of information. Each partner is entitled to interest on capital at 12% per annum. Take into account that partner Taylor has increased her capital by 30,000 Rand on the 1st of July 2014. Okay, so we'll obviously look at that information further. The remaining profit and losses must be shared equally. And then finally, the last bit of information, partner Taylor took trading stock at cost price for 2,500 Rand for personal use. This was not recorded. Okay, right, familiar with the information, so let's now get to the actual question. Okay, now our first question wants us to calculate the correct net profit for the year, taking into account the additional information provided. Okay, so in other words, they're talking about information 1. The net profit for the year was given to us. However, there's one more adjustment that needed to be taken into account. So let's do that. Right, so we've got the net profit for the year. Let's just quickly find that. So our net profit, 221,674. Okay, so I'm going to quickly write that in my answer sheet. Okay, the net profit, 221,674. Let's just double check that. Okay, 221,674. Okay, so that's correct, 221,674. And now let's take into account that additional adjustment. Okay, there we go. Right, an employee who began working for the business in December 2014, employee, was in error left out of the December's salary journal. Quite sad to be left out of the salaries journal for December. But anyway, let's read on. His details of his salary were as follows. Deductions, SARS PAYE was 400 Rand. SA pension fund, an amount of 1,000 Rand. And his net salary, 11,800. Okay, the business does not make any additional contributions until the 3rd month of employment. So we don't have to worry about additional contributions. Right, now how does this adjustment affect our net profit? Now remember guys what I said earlier on. Net profit is calculated after taking income minus expenses. So we're now dealing with an additional expense that was left out of this calculation. So we need to bring this into account. But if I look at the information given to me, SARS PAYE is a liability, pension fund is a liability, net salary is also a liability. Net salary, remember guys from last year, represents your creditors for salary. So they obviously not giving me my gross salary. Okay, now remember guys, gross salary is your expense. They've only given me liabilities. I now need to calculate what is my gross salary. By calculating gross salary, I now have my expense and I can use this in my net profit calculation. So how do we work out gross salary? We've got to now work backwards. Remember guys, net salary, what he takes home after deductions. Gross salary is your salary before deductions. So all we're going to do is add these figures to get our gross salary. So let's get the calculator out. Okay, there we go. Right, so let's add. We've got 400, okay, SARS PAYE, plus the pension fund, an amount of 1,000, plus the net salary 11,800, and that gives us our gross salary 13,200 that wasn't taken into account. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so don't want the calculator. Right, so we're going to subtract 13,200 because remember it's an additional expense, and that's going to give us our net profit, correct net profit. Okay, so let's do that. 221,674 minus the additional expense of 13,200 and our correct net profit, an amount of 208,474. Okay, not difficult. Let's take a quick break. You guys can obviously, maybe if your teacher allows you, drink something quickly or snack on some lunch, and then we'll carry on straight after the break. Okay, see you guys now. Welcome back, guys. Right, before the this to your opening balance, the figure at the top. Okay, so your balance at the beginning of the year, and this then will give you your balance at the end of the year. Okay, so the rest is not difficult. Once you've got your balance at the end of the year, guys, this is what you take to your balance sheet. Now, there's no time for us to do the next question, but when you complete the balance sheet, capital would obviously be whatever they've contributed during the year in this part of the balance sheet. And then your current account is the information that I just spoke about from the note itself. That is the figure that you would show in this section of the balance sheet. Capital plus current account is going to give you your owner's equity. Okay, sure. That was quite a bit. Right, guys, that's all we have time for today. Hopefully you've learned something. Remember what I've said about formats. You've got to know your formats. Practice your calculations. It's not a difficult section, guys. Good luck. God bless. From me until we meet next time, take care of yourself. Bye-bye.